Hi, it's me again with CorelDraw Tips and Tricks. Somebody sent me this really fuzzy image and they wanted to turn it into a vector much like this. And this is really pretty easy. Just a couple things you could think about. Let me get this one out of the way. I'm going to Control G to group it and move it up. Now, this is the image. It's a little bit big, but I'm not going to reduce it because I'm not going to do too much with it. I'm going to hit the plus key. So I nudge it at 5 inches. This thing is 4.5. I only want to trace the man out because the rest can be drawn really easy. So to crop that out, you want this image selected and you got your points to showing you it is. Because if you don't select it and you crop it out, it'll take away everything else on your screen. So crop. Now, we've reduced the size of the picture quite a bit to make it easier for Corel to trace. Outline, so go to Trace Bitmap, Outline, Trace, Clip Art, which I use 99.9% of the time. I'm going to go and bump up all the, and this just happened to work out perfectly. I'm going to go, there's our trace copy. It looks like pretty bad, but I'm going to group and ungroup it. And then I'm going to take, let me zoom in here. The figure of the man is basically in the center, and I'm just going to nudge him over. There's your man. It's pretty rough, but it's usable, and I kind of like it rough, but if the person I'm doing it for is X7 or above, you have the smoothing tool. You might want to set it on something like lower and just kind of smooth him out a little bit, especially that rope. His legs could be a little rough. You need to work on maybe his hat a little bit. If you don't have X7 or above, you can still use a shape tool, and maybe we'll play with his hat. You know, who knows what you want it to look like. Whoop, you don't want to do that. Maybe get rid of just one of them. But then we basically, you know, he's got a belt on evidently, and everything else looks pretty good. So I'm going to take away the fill. So I'll left click, right click, because I basically want to get rid of these lines, the telephone pole itself. The easiest thing probably to do is take a 2-point line and just go straight down, and then get your virtual segment delete key and delete that. So you've deleted a lot of the lines. I see a little bit more smoothing we could do with the smoothing tool. Make sure you select it. That looks pretty good. And you could add to it. So now remember one thing. I've always nudged and not moved. That's the key. So what we're going to do now is just basically, and I don't like doing it, but on something like this, it's really pretty easy to hand trace the telephone pole. And at this time is when you can make it yours and, you know, do some things with it. You just want to make sure you close the nodes, and I put a dot right there I want to get rid of. So zoom in and get your 2-point line. You know, right now I'm just making boxes. And you could take a lot more time than I'm taking. And then we'll go ahead and make these supports. And, you know, it's kind of hard to see. You could actually go further, you know, don't have to stick right on that line, kind of go past it might even help. Now, this is probably the best insulator. So we're going to take a rectangle. That bugs me right there. I'm drawing on somebody else's page. So I'm going to change it to so double click on your pen tool, draw in hairline. I'm going to draw in, I actually want to see RGB in red. It'll actually show up better. Whoop. Okay. So let me redraw that insulator. The lines at first were enough, but just make your rectangle about that size. You can go ahead and angle it this time. And then take it's so small that you could just take and start clicking up numbers. We might be a little bit off you want it kind of even with that. Just take 2-point lines. Don't worry about overstepping. Now, for a second, I'm going to take this and go up to Object and lock it. That way I can grab these pieces. If I didn't have it locked, I could not grab that. So with the pick tool, grab that, hit the plus key on your keyboard. I like doing that better than Control D, because if you hit Control D, the next one would just be off the page. Okay. Now we go and take our object and lock and unlock it. We're going to move that to the left. So there's our telephone pole and our insulators. Now, you could weld this, but it's so many different lines it might not weld good. See, it welded the box, which it's supposed to, but Corel can't think of what you really want to do. Now, just go through with the virtual segment delete key and delete these lines. We're actually going to use well, in this case, it wouldn't matter. All these are inside. If there were any lines outside, out in here, we wouldn't have to delete them because we're going to use the Smart Fill tool. But on the inside lines, we need to delete them. And what you're doing, you just think about where the Smart Fill tool is going to flow. Then take the Smart Fill tool. I'm not going to use that brown yet. And look at that. Now, we don't want to do anything to the man yet, but I'm going to left click, right click, and leave that. But we are going to take the man and now Smart Fill him what's showing. And at this time, we can get rid of the man. Whoop. My calculator button is real close. Now, left click, right click, go up to Effects and Contour, and I use 0.04. You can use anything. To the outside with rounded corners. Go and select it all and go up to Object and break the contour apart. And then take the center man and fill it in with black. That's going to be our man on our pole. But we're going to put him up top right now. And then take the center man and move him out and take the bigger man and put him here. That's going to be our offset for our white. Now, I didn't take a lot of time drawing these lines, but I would use the 3-point curve line and then just give that a little bit of a curve. And then instead of drawing it again, hit the plus key on your keyboard and just move it up, holding down the control button. Now I'm going to move my picture out of the way because I need to seal this up. So I'm going to take a 2-point line. And this is where you could take your time. And so now I'm going to fill that in with the Smart Fill tool. And I'm going to nudge it up for a second. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to nudge it back down. I'm going to Control D and make a duplicate, and I'm going to put that one right there. And then I'm going to nudge it over. Now I'm going to left click, no fill, right click, outline. And I'm going to, if there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more we need to make, with them both grabbed, go to Object, Blend, and we're going to blend them 5 times. And then that way they look a little closer to the bottom. You know what? Maybe the file I'm using, maybe the accelerator was set a little high. There we go. That looks better. Now we need to contour telephone pole. So I'm going to move it down and go to the outside again. Go up to Object, break contour apart. And then I'd go ahead and take my inner telephone pole and make it black. And there's your man on your pole. But get rid of this one. So this is our contoured man, and this is our contoured telephone pole. Now we want the man to be past this. Now I need to take all these, go up to Object and break the blend apart, take all these, Object, group and ungroup it. Now I'm going to move my telephone pole. This is my version of the contour. I'm a little bit different than the first one, but it'll still, yeah, that'll work good. Now, I'm going to move all this up out of the way more. And we're going to need those people in just a second in the telephone pole. But I'm going to, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to group this together, Control G, because I normally like to take the Smart Fill tool and then nudge it over. But if there's some pieces like right there that you miss, you're going to miss them. So what you can do is Smart Fill them now. And because that other part is a group, this won't really make any sense till we bring the man back in. Whoop. Don't do the telephone pole. Don't do the man. But get every part. You know what? I shouldn't have done that one right there, because that's a white line. Here's a black line. I'm going to go ahead and fill that in. And whoop, just because he's off a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and fill in this. Okay. Now, remember that we have this group together, so I can move it down. There is our item. Here's our guy on his pole, and he's got a white outline around him. And you know, it didn't take that long. And what you could do to put that brown, and of course it's off on the poles themselves, just take a box. I'm actually going to use that same color. So if you go to the Smart Fill tool, get a sample of that. And I know they're not going to use that same color, but you see this really isn't going to work until you move that box out of the way and then put it up there and go up to Object, Order, Back a Page. And it looks pretty close to the original. Of course, my brown is a little bigger, but the sharpness, so they didn't say if they're a laser engraver or not, but whatever is yellow is not going to engrave, and everything that black will. So there's this line we put around will not engrave. Pretty fun project. I hope that helped them a little bit. Thank you for watching.